In this video, we're going to analyze the Aztec civilization using this book, The Aztecs, A Very Short Introduction by David Carrasco, and compare them to the Mayan civilization. The Aztecs were a Mesoamerican civilization in the pre-Columbian era, dating back to the 14th and 16th centuries. They existed in what is now known as Central America. In fact, the Aztecs' capital city of Tenochtitlan is what we now know today as Mexico City. Carrasco characterizes Tenochtitlan as a political and economic empire. In November of 1519, this city was home to 200,000 inhabitants, and at this time in Paris and Constantinople, which were the biggest city-states in the world, they only housed 300,000 people, to put in perspective how large this city was. Carrasco characterizes on page 78 that the primary role of the women within the Aztec society is to be homemakers and child rearers, and they refer to their children as necklaces, which I found interesting. Another interesting piece about the Aztec civilization were the gender roles that they established early on in life. So 4 days after a child was born, they would undergo a bathing and naming ceremony, where they would encourage the male children to become warriors and defend their nation by touching small weapons such as bow and arrows, and they would encourage women to become these wives who stayed in the home and cleaned, and they would touch things like weaving toys and brooms. So the Aztecs practiced a polytheistic religion, so they worshiped multiple gods and had idols, and they believed that these idol gods would be pleased if they sacrificed humans. So they would actually take members of their own society and sacrifice one member per month, in addition to other things that they did, human sacrifices such as children that were born with disabilities. But an interesting point that the author brings up is that we in the Western culture solely attribute human sacrifice and cannibalism to the Aztecs, even though they were a multifaceted culture and there were plenty of other things that we should learn from this culture rather than just the fact that they practiced cannibalism and sometimes did human sacrifices. And I thought that it was a good point to note that plenty of other cultures have done this, such as Romans, Greeks, Japanese, Chinese, Africans, Egyptians. The Mayans were another Mesoamerican civilization and were a dominant indigenous society. The location was centered around modern-day Guatemala, and for thousands of years, the Mayans established great cities and were a thriving, sophisticated culture. They lasted a lot longer than the Aztecs. The earliest civilizations dated back to 1800 BC, and the fall of the empire didn't happen until 1500 AD during the Spanish conquest, which we'll discuss in a moment. They created intricate architecture, used a unique calendar system, and documented their history using hieroglyphic records. And as a fun fact, in modern-day Mexico and Central America, around 5 million people still speak some 70 Maya languages. How could the Aztec Empire, with its powerful military tradition, complex religious institution, and long-range trading and spy system, fall to a conflicted group of Spanish invaders in less than 2 years on home ground? In just 2 years, the Aztecs fell to the Spanish invaders. But the question is, how? Yes, the Spanish did have greater warfare technology, including cannons and crossbows, but the author Carrasco points out that this isn't the reason for the decline solely. It was the massive indigenous armies that were also attacking the Aztecs, the spread of European disease. In addition, there was this vast miscommunication amongst these two civilizations, and evidence of this is shown in an illustrated drawing of Donna Morena as she served as an interpreter between the Aztecs and the Spanish. The author also notes that the Aztecs did not just fall or give in politely to the Spanish, they fought a great and bloody war. However, the Spanish still seized control over the Aztec Empire, and after they took control, they forced an aggressive conversion effort to Catholicism among the Aztecs. The same conversion effort took place as the Spanish invaded and conquested the Mayan civilization. They also burned Mayans' hieroglyphic books, hundreds of them, to which only 4 remain. My thoughts regarding the Spanish conquest on both the Mayan and the Aztec Empire is that the reason that the Spanish didn't try to adapt and learn from the Mayans is because they weren't like them. They weren't European and white. So my takeaway, imagine how much greater our knowledge on topics like architecture and astronomy would be had the Spanish attempted to adapt and learn from both of these civilizations rather than destroying them.